Welcome to Seriously Uncork Yourself. I am your host, Lynn Kuhn, and this is a podcast that brings to you a firsthand look at what it seriously means to meet people where they are in their life. Enjoy the experience from illusions to reality. Find out what it is to restore to high performance, renew your freedoms, and rejuvenate playfulness. I can't wait to share with you my experience and the experiences of many others in hopes that you feel inspired to renew yourself and live your best life. Thanks for listening. Now let's get started. Hey, welcome. Today I am so excited and honored to have my special guest, Shawn Buttner, here on my new podcast. Thank you, Shawn, for taking the time out of your week. I know how busy you are. And so just a little bit about Shawn that I'm going to tell you guys about him is he is a certified high performance coach, an entrepreneur, and a recovering software engineer. He has an extensive career in technology, ranging over 15 years at companies like Walmart and Apple, and worked with professionals to prevent and to recover from burnout. That's what he does now, is he works with professionals to help with burnout. And so we did go ahead and we named this podcast Progress, Not Burnout. And I'm going to let Shawn tell a little bit more about himself, and then we're going to talk about what this title means to this podcast.
First off, thank you for having me on, Lynn. This is really fun. I always love working with you. So we met years ago at one of the certified high performance coaching trainings, became fast friends. So I'm very, very honored for that. So a little bit more about me. So I've been coaching for about 6 years. And as you had mentioned in the intro, I had a 14-year career in tech at, Walmart and Apple. And one of the things that was consistent for me early on in my career, and as I moved from Arkansas to Silicon Valley and stuff, is that there's this culture of burning people out and just people not taking care of themselves because they're so focused on work. So when I was first starting out, I was, bright-eyed, fresh out of college, used to dictating my own schedule, going into the corporate world where there's tight deadlines and the piles of work never ended. And so what ended up happening for me, I got overwhelmed. I stopped working out. I stopped paying attention to what I was eating. I was so stressed out, I just stopped sleeping. And so after a little bit of time, I just remember not wanting to wake up and just feeling like there's got to be a better experience. There's got to be a better way to live, because all I was doing was stressing myself at work and then trying to sleep at night. So that led me to start studying personal development. I stumbled on the high performance stuff, and years later, here I am as a coach. So, but that's why this topic of being able to progress your career is really close to my heart, because you want to be able to move forward. But sometimes, especially when you're in that overwhelm zone like I was, taking on another project, taking on another thing, taking a risk in your career to, switch jobs to, either sideways, inside the company, outside the company, can be super overwhelming. And so people get stuck. And so it's part of the way that I think as coaches, we help people get unstuck so they can move forward.
Absolutely. I love that. I do. And so we're going to talk about that and a little bit some more about this burnout too. But before we go on, I would love your take on how do you feel about meeting people where they are at? What does that mean to you when you meet somebody?
It, for me, is being able to see through somebody else's perspective. So when you meet someone, they might be yelling at their kid. You don't know that the kid has been poking their brother with a pencil the whole time. Mom's just had enough of it. Or, it's just somebody's at the end of their rope. You don't know the situation. Maybe the kid was going to walk out in traffic and mom got scared and or dad got scared. It doesn't have to be just mom, but the facts are parent is yelling at kid doesn't mean that bad parent. It could be trying to protect, trying Absolutely. To just do the best that they can in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that compassion and curiosity really helps you just kind of walk in somebody else's shoes.
Yeah.
So that if you can meet them, like I see that right now in that weird thing that I pulled out of the top of my head, that situation that I see that this is happening, instead of overreacting to and kind of getting caught up in the drama, you can take a step back and really understand people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. 'Cause that's what I've learned too over the years, especially with, being around a lot of people all the time. With my jobs, I've always been around a lot of people and meeting new people. And then like with us, meeting new people, even at, going to our coaching where we were learning, there's like hundreds of people there and they're from all around the world. And when you meet them, it's, sometimes first impressions don't quite cut it, right? Because you always need to, like you said, you never know what would happen to that person, an hour before that you met them, or what's going on in their life, or could they even be, maybe something's wrong, maybe they're sick or anything, and you don't know that. And I've learned now that I try to do, and it's really hard for me with my personality, is to listen. And I think that that is such a quality anymore in a person, is if you can actually listen. Just for instance, like yesterday, I was talking to a physician's, a nurse practitioner, a nurse practitioner.
Okay.
And I was asking her some questions, and I even told her afterwards how wonderful it was that she actually listened to what I had to say. I mean, truly, she stopped and let me ramble. And when I got done, I said, that makes sense. And she said, yeah. And then I go, and at the end of the conversation, I says, I want to really thank you for listening, because most people don't anymore. They just want to, get to the quick, and just give you their idea from that, instead of really like letting you give them the whole situation and dig in, and then, then come to the conclusion. So I thought that was really pretty neat, that she did that. But let's see, I wanted to also ask you, we're talking about with the podcast that in this podcast, I like to touch on some of the subjects on restoring to high performance, and which that means to, it's, which is ongoing feeling of full engagement, joy, and confidence that comes from consistently living from your best self. And then renew your freedoms. And renew your freedoms, it's like, it could be, there's quite a few different freedoms that we actually don't know, that we forget about, like mindset freedoms, relationship freedoms. There's so many different freedoms that we can go into. And as in the next podcast, that if you guys keep on listening, we'll be, hitting on these. And I think there's a lot of really good things that could come out. And then the other one that I put in, as far as the Seriously Uncork Yourself podcast, is to rejuvenate playfulness. And that one is one that I think that with the times, and nowadays so many of us are so busy that we never take that time to have fun, or time to be youthful again. Time, it can be anything, as far as, spending time with your family, or, taking a night out to go with your spouse. And get away, not cooking a special supper in the house or whatever, but actually you guys, getting together and doing something, and like, and spending time together. And I think that's so important, that we all need to do that. But I had asked Shawn a little bit about these. And the first one that we want to talk about is to restore to high performance. And what does that mean to you?
So restoring to high performance is really, I think, like you had mentioned, it's being consistently your best self in different situations. And, like redefine it's beating what's ever normal in your life without destroying your relationships or health, or without burning out. So very topical for what we've been talking about. So another way to put it would be to just align your life, all the different buckets we have, our personal lives, our health, our careers, or, general wellness, and things that make us happy. Right. And making sure that they're all kind of stacked and pointed to whatever our goals are, right? And the ever-changing wheel of goals that we have right. in our lives.
And so with what we're talking about today too, it's your site talking about burning out. So when you're saying that, so the audience knows, what do you exactly mean? Like when somebody's burnt out, what does that mean?
Okay, that's a very good question. And so I'll talk to it through two different perspectives, right?
Mm-hmm.
One will be is if you're in an organization and are looking to see if maybe a team or a section of a company is burnt out, because when I worked at one of the two companies, I'll keep it secret just for intrigue, but for one of the two companies, I remember being put on a project and walking in to this whole floor where they were supporting this piece of software. Nobody was smiling. It was very quiet. Anytime you asked anything to anyone on that floor, you're going to get snapped at, or you're going to get the minimum amount of work. And the history of the project is it had been running for 4 years. It's a year project that had been on year 4 with no sight of stopping. And so that the excitement, that joy for, going after the goal was completely gone. So I'm not sure if you've ever been in a situation where you've walked into an organization or a group of people and you could just maybe get that spider sense that nobody's really happy and nobody really wants to be there. Like that's a really good definition of burnout, right?
Yeah, and I'm not going to say where I have my job at, but when I walk into there, yeah, there's many mornings that it's like it's Monday morning every day.
Exactly, right?
And it's just like, and then I'll walk in and I'm all like joyful and they look at me like I got 2 heads, Who is this person? You're not supposed to act like that. And I'm just like, whatever. But no, I actually get that. And it's sort of sad that people have to live that way.
Yeah. And if you are that person, like, again, like when I was talking about when I was first working at Walmart, I was overwhelmed, would wake up, I would not want to wake up. I would drag into the office. There's no sense of joy anywhere. Just this ether of kind of like despair all around you all the time, with no way of really seeing the way out of it, right? I think that's the biggest part of burnout is once you're in it, sometimes it can be really hard to say that, hey, I can change this, one, or two, like there is a way for me to either switch my perspective, whether it's just switching the language in my head. Like that was one of the things I had to do. Instead of saying I hate my job 100 times in my head every day, it's like, I don't love it. Right.
Right.
And that little shift in language seems very minor, but it was very profound, at least for me, in saying that I don't love this. So, but it's not as emotionally charged. So I wasn't stressing myself out consistently.
So what are some of the other things that you do to help overcome overwhelm?
That's a great question. And so what I've learned out of the course of my career.
Do we have how many hours? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. This could be a very, very deep conversation, but overall, I learned that sometimes the thing that's overwhelming you need a lever to kind of tip it over so it's not as overwhelming. And what do I mean by that? If your job's stressing you out, for me, I got so desperate, I signed up to run a marathon. And so that training, the exercise, the miles kind of ran out a lot of different emotions, but it got me to a point where I could start to think about that my situation a little more objectively and be like, okay, like I have student loans. That's a math problem. I know math. I can figure that out. It's just going to take time. It's like, what do I really want to do with my life? Like on mile 14, you're like, what do I really want to do with my life? Because the endorphins have hit you and you're smiling ear to ear. And that's a really good place to be in that space of what do I want for my future? And so leverage your health or leverage other areas of your life to move you forward, and then get into that good space where you can reflect and dream about the future. I think when you're overwhelmed, when you're burnt out, you don't get that long-term perspective. And if you don't have that long-term perspective, you're not excited about, I'm going to, find my life's mate and, have an awesome family. I'm going to, find out what I really love doing and be really good at it and make a big contribution to the world. Like you stop having those types of thoughts. And that's really sad. That's why you're so sad.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good. So I think that you were going to ask me a question, weren't you?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I wanted to
Yeah.
know if there was ever a time in your life where you felt completely burnt out or overwhelmed. And
Well,
when was that?
there was actually many times, but I think one of the times that is pretty profound because it actually got me to where I am today was I was raising 4 children on my own and
Wow.
was going through divorce. And I just, with working and taking care of 4 kids and taking care of a house, I had to take care of my mom. I had to take care of her house. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And on. And I was really overwhelmed. But I took a turn where I turned to the wrong thing and I started drinking a little bit too much. I mean, I was a weekend warrior and it got to be timing myself to shut myself down so that I knew that I had this amount of time to go to sleep so I could get up and go to work. And that became very overwhelming because it was very hard to manage your life. And so when I decided finally that I needed to get some extra help in here, and it was hell no high water, I was going to go and I was going to get well. And so I did. I punched my, dragged myself. That's the word I was trying to say. I was going to say, put myself into rehab. I dragged myself to a rehab center, and it really did. It was the turning point in my life. Because I knew that I didn't know how to live without that in my life, without drinking in my life. And how was I going to do that? Because, that was my stress reliever. That was when I was overwhelmed. That's what I did is I would grab that glass of wine or a Bloody Mary or whatever, it was. And it just got to be, it was taking over everything. And so I knew that I had to do that. But so, going to rehab, I thought that was going to be just like, oh my God, how can I humble myself to do that? How can I go to rehab? I mean, how can I take off the time from work? Who's going to watch my kids? But it got to be that I knew that I had to be an advocate for myself. Somewhere in this brain was still working. Some of those brain cells were still popping, that I needed to go in there and get myself well so I could take care of myself and my family. And then, but then after I went through that, then the real challenge started. Then you had to put stuff in action. You had to take the action. And I worked my ass off. I mean, literally worked my ass off to stay sober. And, it'll be 9 years. And It was like, thank you. But it was the best decision in my life. And it was sort of one of those decisions that I was made to make that decision in a sense. It was just like, I knew that there was no other choice but actually admitting it. And, because I mean, you feel humiliated too. I mean, it's like you feel like you're a failure when you shouldn't feel that way. Now that I've went through that and I've helped many other people, which is it's so gratifying. I just love it. I love helping people. And that's why I think, with both of us too, we do love people. And I think that's the reason why we both became certified high performance coaches too, because that's part of, what we do. And so, yeah, that's one of the times I was very overwhelmed in my life. Yeah. And was very burnt out.
I can't even imagine. And thanks for sharing that. That's very, very open and honest and amazing too. Like, I know you mentioned that it's something that probably when you're going through, you said when you're going through it, you feel a little down on yourself with.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But it's such a brave thing. And with the coaching, we always talk about what's necessary, like the fact that you knew you needed to do this for your family. So, there's lots of ways to do it. That's just awesome. It's amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and it is. And it's really, and a lot of people, when you're first starting out, you really think that you can never do it because you just can't imagine your life without having a drink. For me, having a drink in my hand, I mean, and that's, what do you do when you get together with your friends, And then I was thinking, however, am I going to lose all my friends? But you don't. It just takes a different course and you learn how to, set that sail just a little bit in a different way, and it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. That is for darn sure. It's just a process that you work at it, and it's like building a business. You work at it and you work at it and you work at it, And so that brings us to the other one too, is to rejuvenate playfulness, which I just love. And so what happens, which happened to me, and I'm sure it probably happens to other people too, is that, so once, I did, learn to live a sober life, then it was still I still letting a lot of things overwhelm me, because I didn't know then how to separate and basically like scheduling out. So I learned a lot of like on time blocking and stuff like that really helped me with that, because I know that I am the type of person that when I see something, I want to know about it, and when I have other projects that have to get done in order, if I'm seeing this, and so it's like, it's like I got to stay focused, and I do a lot of time blocking, and that's really helped out. And the reason I say that too is that we need to put in our time block time to go ahead and have some fun, because you have to let that stress and that overwhelm out somewhere. And so I think that's really important. So like, what do you do? What do you do for yourself besides work all the time?
Well, I'm a amateur, I was going to say musician. I don't do magic.
Cool.
I can play guitar, I can sing. And over the course of my amateur career, I've been paid in burritos. I've been paid in like free beer or just change. So kind of legit, like amateur.
Yeah.
But I love music. I tend to be someone that's always. So my mom was very good at trying to always find the silver lining in things, because growing up, she had breast cancer. Our family had a lot of medical things. My dad had a wall fall on him when I was in second grade. He's a construction worker. Like, broke his leg, was out of work for a year.
Oh, geez.
And so there's a lot of hardship in that, especially like insurance didn't cover all that kind of stress and nonsense. But what I remember most about those times growing up is like my mom always found things to laugh at.
Yeah.
Like it would say like she has the most twisted sense of humor I know.
I love her.
Kind of
I just love her. I have to meet her, Shawn.
She's always cracking jokes, always inappropriate. Like, Mom, like, why would you say that? That's really terrible. But like, doesn't happen, so it's good. Like when she met my now wife, she like threatened her with a butter knife. It's like we went to brunch. She's like, "Hey, I love you," and then like put it down, and it like Ashley had no idea how to take that, but like it's a good sign. It's a good sign. So. That kind of thing.
That's sweet. I just love that.
Yeah.
So what else would you like to talk about?
So I do have a video series about this topic.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking. Okay.
So,
You said you had something that you made.
Yeah. And so I'm making it available free for the podcast for the folks here. So if you go to ShawnButtner.com/progress without burnout series with dashes in between it, I think they'll be in the notes.
It'll be in the notes. Yeah. I'll go ahead and I'll do that. I'll put it in the show notes.
If you didn't write it down, you're safe. So it's just a couple of videos talking about how to overcome burnout, how to overcome stress. That'll be released very shortly. But you can sign up to get the emails today.
Okay, yeah, that'll be wonderful. Do you want to talk like maybe about one of them, like something that's particular that you'd want the audience to know about in one of the videos that you did?
Sure. So one of the videos talks about general strategies to help keep you, like you're talking about playfulness. This is like being able to play is one of the best ways to combat burnout, because, when you're playing, you're not putting a lot of stress on yourself.
Right.
So if you're trying to learn a new skill, if you're trying to, if you can figure out how to make things a game, that's been something I've used quite a bit. It's a really great way to kind of knock some of the seriousness out of things, for good or bad, I guess. But ultimately, if you're not burning out, it's a good thing. So
cool. All right. So before we get going, I'm going to go ahead and mention that one more time. Like I said, Shawn's will be in the show notes, but it's www.shawnbuttner.com/progress without burnout series. And so you can go ahead and get that free, right? Is that what you were saying? That's pretty cool. Yeah. I love that. And so anybody out there, go ahead and please share our podcast with anyone and subscribe and leave a rating and a review. I would just love for you guys to do that. And I want to thank you, Shawn, for coming on today. think we had a really, really fun time here, and telling our audience the different strategies that we've used to help with overwhelm. And we'll have to have you back on, and we'll have to talk some more about that. I would just love that. What do you think?
Oh, that would be great. And thank you so much again for having me on today.
I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you so much. Thank you for tuning into the show. I hope this brought out your passions, ignited you, and inspired you to restart and reclaim your life. Please subscribe to my podcast and feel free to leave a rating and a review. Until the next episode of Seriously Uncork Yourself, you can check out more information at lynnkuhn.com. That's Lynn, L-Y-N-N, Kuhn, Kuhn.com. Be sure to tune in for my next episode. Sending you all peace and love until our next time together. Seriously Uncork Yourself.